Hi everyone, welcome to our Processing.JS workshop, where basically we're going to be combining coding and art. So my name is Julia and I'm a high school coder who's interested in creating websites and drawings. I'm also a mentor at Bytes and Pieces, where basically we have different workshops in coding and music. If you're interested, you can sign up using the Google form in the description. On the right is a picture that I sort of coded using Processing.JS, which basically all these functions are from Processing.js, and on the right is my picture. So what is this language? This language is actually a library from JavaScript, where basically every method is either dictating the shape or the color of the shapes. And I would say the level is pretty easy to pick up. I'm going to be using these three links in order to show demonstrations and how to create a drawing live. So to get started, we have coordinate points because this is basically like a drawing board. So top left corner would be 0, 0, and bottom right corner would be 300, 300. And each time they have different functions for colors. They have these three values, and three values only because it's RGB values. They all determine sort of like the amount of red, green, and blue each color has. So whenever there's going to be a color function, there's always going to be three numbers only. So I'm going to be following along to create a drawing. If you want to follow along, you can use a Khan Academy account. And today I'm going to be drawing a house with a background, sun, and trees. To get started, you can use this link to create a new drawing. Okay, basically when we first start off, it's going to be a blank slate. But in order to sort of start off with a new drawing, you can have a background. So here we make the background light blue because we're going to be creating a sort of outdoor scene with different birds, different trees, and a ground and a house. So the sky is going to be bright blue, which is, you can also manipulate the colors by just clicking on one of these things and then changing the color from here. So next, we're going to be using other shapes. For example, we're going to be using an ellipse for the sun. So this function basically says there's no stroke, which basically says there's not going to be a black outline that's surrounding the sun. Oops. So here, as you can see, we have an outline, but if you don't want to have an outline, you can press the no stroke and then put that in there so that there's not going to be some kind of outline. The fill is basically where the color is, or basically if you put the fill before the shape, it means that it's going to fill that shape with that color. So this fill is light yellow, and then the ellipse is dictated by 4 numbers, which basically means these two are the locations of the ellipse, and these two are sort of how wide and how long it's going to be. It's a round circle because these two numbers are the same. If you want to make it like an oval shape, you can change it like this, and here you have it in oval shape. Here I can move it around. You can also drag it around as well. Basically determines the location of the ellipse. As I mentioned before, top left corner will be 0, 0, so the smaller the number, the closer it is to that corner, and the bigger the number, it's going to be either going to the right or going to the bottom. So next, besides the sun, we will be having the base of the house. So basically what I did here was I put another fill to indicate that's going to be a different color, and here I chose a sort of light pink. It's pretty easy if you just use this dragging function where you can just choose the color that you want. And then I use the rectangle function, and like I mentioned before, the first two numbers are determining the location. I can move this around, for example, and these two are dictating the shape of the rectangle. Or if they're the same number, they're going to be a perfect square. So next, it's going to be the top of the house. For this one, I'm going to be using a triangle. Because a triangle is a little bit harder to sort of change around, really by just playing around with numbers like this, you can make sure that you get a upright triangle that sort of looks like this. There, as you can see, it's almost lined up. I realized that these two numbers, if they're the same, it's going to have a straight bottom. So what I'm going to be doing is changing this so that it's exactly straight. These two also sort of change the shape of triangle. For example, this makes it taller, this makes it shorter. This one changes left and right. We're going to be using a sort of equilateral triangle for the top or the roof of our house. Next, we're going to be inputting something else. That's going to be the ground of the drawing. What I did was I had a rectangle, and then I extended it so that it can fill up the entire drawing. Because if I do something like this, it's going to be a shorter rectangle. Because the ground's going to extend to the entire length of the drawing, I'm going to be extending it so that it's going to cover the entire drawing. It's negative because it's sort of going off into the left of the drawing where we can't see. But if you can move it like this so that you can see it. Again, I use a different fill because it's going to be a different color. Next, I'm going to be using an arc. That's going to be the bird. Basically with the arc, again, same with the triangle and the arc, because there's different numbers, it's going to be a little bit harder to sort of see what each number is doing when you're changing it. So I would just recommend just messing around with the numbers and seeing how it goes. Usually the first two numbers determine the location, so you're fine. You just move it like this. This one determines like the sort of like the width of the shape. So to make it look like a bird, I'm going to be using two arcs. So I'm going to be using this, and there it sort of looks like a bird. If you want to sort of copy it and make different numbers of birds, what you can do is just copy and paste, and then changing the locations. For example, I already have my bird right here. That's the first bird. Second bird is going to be this one. So I'll just be changing the locations like this. Again, same with this bird. I'm going to be changing the locations. Okay, now we have three birds. If you want to make it in a different location, you can also change the up and down like this. And now they're all in different locations. So now our next step is going to be using a different shape, which is a rectangle. So here, the first rectangle is the door, the second one is the window. What I did was I used a brown color for the door, and then a white color for the window. So here, I made it so that it aligns with the house by just changing around the coordinates and making sure that it aligns with the left and right side of the house. Okay, there we go. For the window, I did the same thing. I made it so that it's going to be in the top right corner of the house. Next, we're going to be constructing parts of the trees. Or actually, it's going to be the doorknob. It's basically, this is the next window. And by the way, you can also put documentation or put comments to sort of show where or what the shape is doing, what the code is doing. So what you can do is add comments by doing this. I'm pretty sure this is the door, so what you can do is comment / door, and then do the same for Windows so that you can see, sort of understand better what your code is doing. So this part is the doorknob. I use the ellipse function again. I use a perfect circle with 9, 9, and made sure that it aligns with the door. So after that, I believe it's going to be parts of the tree. Here is the tree trunk, and what I did was, even though it's negative, you can also make it positive by doing like this, and then changing it so that it goes left. Or if you want to use negative, you can then move it to the right. So either way, it doesn't really matter too much. Negative numbers are allowed in Processing.JS. To create the leaves of the tree, I'm using different ellipses so that they sort of overlap to create a cloud shape. So what you can do is just... Interesting. Okay, so what you can do is just use this ellipse and then copy and paste it over and over again. But what you can do is change the colors to make the tree look more, I guess, a little bit more realistic. And then here you can just move the locations. You can add as many circles as you want until you're satisfied with how the tree looks. I'm going to be adding another ellipse and then seeing how that looks. Okay, if you want to make the same tree on the other side of the house, what you could do is just copy and paste what you had so far. I believe it starts right here. You can copy and paste it and then change all the locations of the shapes. So for example, the tree trunk, I'll move it all the way to the left. And then same with all the other circles or ellipses. You can just change the first number because that's the left and right motion. You don't have to change the second number, which determines the up and down motion. Okay, there we have it. The next step is going to be, or actually, that's it. So that's going to be the end of our workshop. Basically what I had was different colors for our shapes to create a sort of realistic, sort of clip art sort of drawing. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll put the code in the YouTube description so that you guys can sort of see it on your own.